Well, I wanted to talk to you all today about real relationships and commitment. So if I were to ask you what you think it is that holds any relationship, but especially marriage, together, what would you say? If you were to ask couples that have been married a long, long time, what do you think they would tell you? How would they say they have done it? Do you think it's because their personalities just go together perfectly and that they don't ever irritate or hurt each other? Maybe they've never had any hardships or any trouble? Think that's the secret? Have any ideas of what it might be? Well, you would think they would say it was love, right? After all, if you have enough love feelings, your marriage can probably survive anything, don't you think? You look a little skeptical. Well, maybe surprisingly, that answer is pretty much dead wrong. It does help to have love, of course. But I think that they would tell you that in spite of the hard times, what kept them together was that they gave their word. There was integrity in their promise when they said, I do, till death do us part. It was commitment. And I've been thinking about how this concept of commitment is so opposite of what we see today in our culture. It actually seems that fewer and fewer couples are even getting married. They don't even make that commitment to begin with. And those who do, almost 40% of them end in divorce. And I recently heard some young people talking, and in their conversation they mentioned that a friend of theirs has a different girlfriend every couple of weeks. Now these were young people, teenagers, and so we might think that's kind of comical or typical in teenagers, but unfortunately that mentality seems to kind of carry over to the general population of adults as well. And I think it's because our world has an upside down view of what real love or commitment looks like. It tends to say, I'll love you as long as it's convenient for me. Or, I'll love you as long as it's good for me and I'm not hurt. I'll love you as long as there's no hardship involved. Or maybe, I'll love you as long as you're lovable. But that's not what Jesus said and lived by, is it? He said, I am with you always. I will never leave you or forsake you. Love is patient. He didn't say, I'll give my life for you when you're lovable and deserving. No, he taught that what God has joined together, no one should separate. And he said, in the world you will have trouble. Anytime you have two imperfect people, which we all are, there will be conflict. But take heart, because I've overcome the world, and because I have, you can too. And speaking of conflict, doesn't our world tell us that conflict in relationship is a sign that that relationship wasn't meant to be? You're not right for each other, and you should just move on to something or someone better. It's a very shallow, me-centered concept of, if it doesn't work out, I'll just move on. And I think because of this, children and families are suffering, and we as a society are reaping the consequences of that. We're paying the price. But did you know that the only relationships that exist without conflict are superficial ones? Conflict in a relationship shows that it is a real relationship, and when two people are willing to work through the conflict, it shows that there's value in it. There's something worth fighting for. And working through conflict together, rather than jumping ship, makes your relationship stronger and more meaningful, and it actually makes you better as a person too. So I know y'all are not married yet, but I want you to start thinking about this and watching and paying attention, so that when the world presents to you its upside down view of what relationships look like, you know that a good relationship, in that everything will just click effortlessly like magic, and all you need is love, and if it doesn't happen, just move on until something else makes you happy. That you will recognize and know that the right side up view based on biblical principles is what produces a real and lasting relationship. Someone once said, I heard this quote, "There are always two choices, two paths to take. One is easy, and its only reward is that it's easy. At the moment, it's the easiest thing to do." And I wanted to end by reading a little excerpt to you all from a children's classic, The Velveteen Rabbit. In this book, it tells the story of a stuffed rabbit and his quest to become real. He wants to be real, not just a toy, through the love of his owner. The Skin Horse had lived longer in the nursery than any of the others. He was so old that his brown coat was bald in patches and showed the seams underneath, and most of the hairs in his tail had been pulled out to string bead necklaces. He was wise, for he had seen a long succession of mechanical toys arrive to boast and swagger, and by break their mainsprings and pass away, and he knew they were only toys and would never turn into anything else. For nursery magic is very strange and wonderful, and only those playthings that are old and wise and experienced, like the Skin Horse, understand all about it. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day, when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came to tidy the room. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you are made," said the Skin Horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the Skin Horse, for he was always truthful. "When you are real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up?" he asked, "or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the Skin Horse. "You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily or who have sharp edges or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off and your eyes drop out and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly except to people who don't understand." "I suppose you are real?" said the rabbit. And then he wished he had not said it, for he thought the Skin Horse might be sensitive. But the Skin Horse only smiled.